Welcome to Linux Saloon, a place to discuss tech, open source, and where Linux is always on tap, as well as good times. Each show we have a talk about a Linux project, such as a Linux distribution, a desktop environment, or application. We also chat about the news or any variety of topics from the community. I think it's Linux, tech, and open source related is on the table for discussion. I'm Nate, Linux fitness and vintage tech enthusiast with an almost unhealthy obsession with the OpenSUSE project. And with me today, I got a fantastic panel of people. I have Ben, Dale of low-tech Linux fame, Jinda, Colin, also of PC TLC fame, Eris, Matt, and the one and only Schykle. How is everybody?
Excellent.
Good. But
Awesome. I'm not sure what you said, Ben, but it sounded great.
I said kicking butt.
Kicking butt. Okay, just as long as you don't get like any kind of,
Wow.
any authorities called on you for that kind of butt kicking. then I think we're
Oh,
all set.
gracious. Well, kicking butt with Linux, let's put it that way.
Okay, that's good. That's good. As long as it's a
Yeah.
in the non-literal sense. I guess.
In the non-literal.
All
yeah.
right. So we don't want to
We
create
don't
any
want
kind
to
of
go overboard.
something on you. That'd be terrible. Be terrible. Can't have
God,
you.
no.
Because I don't know if they'll let you stream from jail. That'd be really awkward too,
Geez, no.
especially with a stainless steel potty in the background.
Especially
I
after
don't
all-
know how that.
Today on my surprise later in the show.
Yes, that's right. So if you have not done that straw poll, on that note, be sure to do so. It talks about how you store your data or how much of your data you store in the cloud. So on the docket for today, we got ourselves a news flight night. We'll be doing
Out of it.
a straw poll in there, of course. Then we have a community free pour with Storm West. Ben's really excited about something. I didn't fully understand because I was like driving and I was parked when I read his
You'll
text. And
better when
and then so he's got some news. I don't want to spoil it. It sounded exciting. He was excited. There's a lot of exclamation points and cap letters, so I know it's got to be good. And I didn't clear this ahead of time before, but what have you been doing in Linux and tech? Does anybody here have anything they wanted to share? I should have like queued this up ahead of time. Jinda, I see that hand. Obviously, you're excited about something.
No, it's my stupidity as usual, right?
I don't think you have any.
Yeah, well, you know what I'm saying. My inabilities to be able to do anything write code very well, and I decided that I was going to try to write some code. And naturally, for me, I don't know if this is for everybody, but most of the time when you write code, the logic behind it is usually pretty simplistic. That's not the hard part. The hard part is getting some stupid context right, like where you put commas and brackets and silly things like that. If that makes sense to anybody, I don't know, but for me, that was where I had difficulties. So what happened is that I bought a little handheld game system and it had tons of video games on it. So I dumped them in RetroArch, and RetroArch was nice enough to tell me which ones were Japanese or not. So I wanted to sit there. Maybe I could sit here and try to delete each one that was Japanese. And I'm like, no. I think I could write a script to pull that data out and then delete the file. Does that sound like a good idea? I don't know, but I got it to work. I went to a website that I wrote up what I wanted the script to do. And about 20 minutes later, all my files that were game files that were from Japan were gone.
Like gone, like as in not on the
Yeah,
device
I deleted
anymore?
them. Yeah,
Just
I deleted
delete
them. Yeah, I deleted them because I can't read Japanese. Maybe you guys can. I can't. So I just deleted them.
I know Domo Arigato, Mr. Obato. That's about the extent of my my Japanese.
Yeah, I killed Roy.
Yeah, exactly. But that said, I think isn't there like an app for the phone that you can actually hold it up and it'll like translate on the fly? Maybe I have to pay for that now. I don't know. But I could have. I thought something like that existed. You just have to like play your games while through your phone.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I just decided that I was going to kill all the ones that were Japanese, and I went into RetroArch and I went into their files where they store all the stuff, and it told you the name of each game and the location, and it told you if it was, US, Europe, or Japanese. Within a few minutes, I had a script written, ready to go. I'll put the place where I went to for the script, and you guys can check it out in case you want to write a script. Now you can. There's no excuse.
That's
Even if
cool.
you're bad at code like me.
So when you wrote the script, it's like a bash script or it's like a Python
Yeah,
script? What was
just
it?
a bash script. All I
Okay.
said was, basically very simplistically, I said, there's a game file name with this extension, and the line below, if it says Japan, put it in a text file for me. That's pretty much all I wrote, and that script worked flawlessly within a few minutes of me trying to type it up to make sure that I wrote everything that made sense.
That's awesome.
In a way, it is. I mean, AI is way cooler than I ever thought it could be.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
guys ever heard of this website, so try it out.
What's yeah? Do you the
Yeah, I pasted it.
wordkick.com? Okay. I'm gonna
Yeah,
copy
it was
that.
absolutely amazing. I'm pretty sure you can just type in what language you want on the side. I think you can do Rust and C++ and all kinds of stuff. Oh, and I also, because there was, like I said, I had problems with syntax. That was my issue trying to get this, I was trying to get it to work. I asked the question of, okay, well, how does this line work and what does this do? Because I'm confused.
Mhm.
And it told me. And it helped me out to try to understand it.
That's pretty awesome.
For a learning experience, this was top notch.
No, that's really cool.
Silly
that's-
reason to use it.
Well, not really. I mean, anytime you get like a practical application for a tool, be it AI
Mhm.
or whatever, some sort of a artificial general intelligence, I think that's now what we're calling it. I guess through any sort of large language model, I think that's very valuable. So, but I mean, if it works and worked great, then I think you got that's a good deal right there. So well
Good
done.
work, Jinda.
Well, hopefully, if you guys have to write some script, now you can without a problem.
And actually, I have a little thing I've been doing recently with AI as well that I'd like to touch on.
Sweet.
Well, it's I've been playing around with chat.deepseek actually, and it helped me to script a this is going to sound a little ironic, but and probably not very Linux sounding, but still using AI. Well, I I was trying to automate making a macOS installer for myself for one of my laptops and fiddle around with that. So uh I was having a hard time getting the configuration file and the USB created, so I figured, what the heck? Let's try asking the AI because I tried, the vanilla way, the etc. And I said, what the heck? Let's AI this thing. So, well, funnily enough, I was on my Windows side of my laptop initially for this because, making the USB in Linux was a little bit not so friendly. So I said, uh, let's just, give this a shot. And I figure, what the hell, script it, and it came out pretty good. And it was actually written in Python, actually, as of all things. And I then decided to take it one step further and put a GUI on it, so, and funnily, the USB part did not actually download the macOS image, which kind of sucked, but oh well, you know, I did actually get a successful Clover config out of it, but eh, one way or the other, it went pretty well, and you know, I have not Oh, jeez. No, not Chat GPT, Chris. Chat.deepseek. I said that. But either way,
Uh, I've never heard of
it
Chat
does load.
DeepSeek. Is that a new thing
I'll post the link to the script here and you can look at it. But
already?
uh, it does automate the creation of the config and everything, and it even downloads all the necessary Mac drivers, etc. But I'm going to preface this. This is only relevant to my laptop, so this is not a universal config by any means of the words. So, because for those that don't know, this is uh, this is not macOS on a Windows machine is not is not a universal kind of thing. So I just want to point that out. And so if you download this script, it's only for playing around reasons. That's all I'm going to say this right now. But yeah, if you're having problems with something, uh, and you want to just, I don't know, I guess cheese your way out of it, this is a good way to do it. But as with other AI products, do not use it as a way to solve all your problems. That's all I'm going to say with this one. And I'm sure a lot of us would probably state that when, like, for you example, right, Jinda?
I choose to
Well,
use
co-
I choose to use food to answer all my problems. So if I can't solve something, I just eat.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I would say, if you've not done a Mac OS on a Windows before, do not use scripting it the way to learn it. Just saying that right now.
So, Jinda, have you done such things?
Yeah.
uh, no, I'm sorry. Not
Scripting
really.
No,
yourselves?
I would say if you want to learn Hackintosh, just if you really want to learn it, do not, do not use AI to learn how to do it. It really teaches you absolute nothing. I just did this for a quick, dirty fix, essentially. Just because I could not find much information online about this particular hardware, and man, that's the main reason I did it. So, yeah.
So it's just
But either way, just sort of like, because I didn't know what the heck else to do, as I said. So, you
comments
know,
about AI from the YouTube chat. Matthew Moore says, "For me,
from
I
the
use
group,
AI when editing photos. It's really good at that.
but
Huge time saver. But outside of that, I don't mess with AI. Just no interest in it." That's fair.
yeah. Ah, boy.
Well, neat.
But
Well, I guess let's move on to the straw poll. There's still a few moments here to knock that out if you have not done so
yeah.
yet. And I don't know if Eris, if you'd grace us with your beautiful voice, that would be a wonderful thing. So I cannot talk.
I can talk, but I don't know if it's gonna be beautiful.
Beautiful to
Eh,
me.
it is a nice voice. I'll give him that.
Um,
You could definitely be like a smooth jazz announcer on the radio.
I I actually don't like my voice, so it's very here to hear.
He's
Nobody does. That's normal.
boy.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
Well, yeah. Okay.
so let me refresh one more time. Uh, so the question is, do you store your personal data in the cloud? And number one answer with 34% is minimal data in the cloud, followed by never with 22%. Primarily store my data in the cloud, 20%. Moderate amount, 12%. Other, 12%. And Tux Penguin didn't get a vote this week. As far as
Poor Tux.
replies, I did get 2 replies. I chose the other option. I pre-encrypt before sending it online. Context and calendar are my on my self-hosted Nextcloud. And then somebody else said, I used to sync things like context calendar to a local Outlook file, but it's cumbersome and slow compared to using Google or iCloud. I have a Nextfile that I run on a Center, Tiny, and while it works as a play toy, if I'm going to entrust my data to it, there's the issue of not of now I gotta pay myself to maintain the hardware and software stack. My contacts and calendar are my personal data, are my personal and professional livelihood. I think I'm happier paying someone to take care of that for me securely and reliably. Similarly, with my family photos, I have several local backups, and I roll my own offsite backup. But I wouldn't go without the additional safety of a professional paid for solution like Google for myself or cloud or iCloud for the missus. Owned in the California fires, including some photos of him and his partner that weren't backed up elsewhere. Stuff like that, stuff that would be irreplaceable. Thanks in advance.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I didn't actually think of that aspect of it, even though it's been in the news. I mean, if you don't have an off-site backup and a disaster happens, that's no matter how rock solid your backups were from a technical perspective, a flood or a fire or tornado, hurricane, any number of things could make that go away. So yeah, there's that. It's pretty wild. What
I
about you,
remember
Eris?
Jason's not here today, but I always remember when Jason talks about offsite backup, and I think he
Mhm.
keeps a fireproof box, a hard drive in there, I think, as a way to protect in case of fires.
Yeah.
I try to keep very tiny things on the cloud, and I encrypt it
Okay. So
prior to saying it.
I put minimal for me, and I'm not sure how accurate that was necessarily. Minimal from like for all my data, it's a very minimal amount. So I figured it kind of relative. But so I use Bitwarden, and that's technically storing it in the cloud, is it not?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
I was thinking more. It was harder how to word this, but I thought more like files and like pictures. Like I understand there's a lot of things you keep online, like you said, like your passwords. I mean, that's encrypted. I don't know. I wouldn't count that as as stuff personal data in the cloud, even though it is, of course, your password because it's like you say, you encrypt it. It's offsite. I don't know.
So that
So that
to me,
I'm sorry.
my Bitwarden is my most valuable bit of data that I own, truly.
Yeah.
So that, and we talked about encryption last week, and I felt Schykle kind of like slapped me down a little bit about my attitude toward it, which he's probably right. Um, no, it's all right. You absolutely should say what you think, because then I'd be offended if otherwise. But like, so my most critical, thing that could, hurt me the most, essentially, Bitwarden, that's stored encrypted. I keep that encrypted. That vault is encrypted, obviously. So that's probably my biggest like data store. But I do have Google Drive, but I don't put much on there anymore. I've pulled most of my stuff off of there, and then of course email, but that's whatever IMAP. But yeah, so most of the stuff is all done between machines here on two different locations. But just have too much data.
It
I'm a
can
hoarder.
be a big rabbit hole in regards to doing offsite backups or doing any kind of advanced, like self-hosted data storage. One thing that I would recommend for people who really do want to get into it and have sort of like an automatic like syncing of things, and you want to start with something simple. Let's say if you're using Google Photos, for example, you don't have to disable that. But install SyncThing on your phone. If you have an Android phone, it's really easy to have it send specific folders over to let's say, a computer at your house. And, you know, get the hang of something like that. Start small. and then move from there. Another really nice thing about things like SyncThing is that they're relatively easy to approach from a user perspective. Like you install it and connecting machines is usually just scanning a QR code and selecting a directory. Um, you don't have to set up like a server software and run a database or do any of that stuff. But the really, really cool thing about SyncThing is that it works directly. So you can have everything, shoot from your phone. Like let's say like every photo and video I take bumps off from my phone and it gets sent to a computer at my house. And then, hey, that computer is also syncing with a computer at, let's say, a friend's or a family member's house 100 miles away. I don't have to touch it at all. But yeah, for people looking into doing stuff like that, SyncThing I feel like is a really good way to get started.
I totally agree.
Um,
That's what I use a lot. Yeah, I'm sorry, Eris.
I was just gonna mention that Sleepy Guy's been said that some of those boxes, fireproof boxes, have melted in the California fires. So it all depends on what it's rated, and yeah, it could get pretty intense and it could melt. I think there's a difference between off-site backups and just the cloud is the only alternative. You can have like, ideally you would have a buddy or some kind of way to to send your data to a secure person's like house or something, and they could send their data to yours. And ideally, that person would live like not close to you, like the other side of the country. And I think that would be ideal, a way of doing that. But yeah, that would require a lot of knowledge of things, and of course somebody you trust and setting it all up.
I was thinking, since we bought these new servers at work, I could probably use that as my offsite backup. Set up a VM on there, put SyncThing. Nobody would know but me and the other IT technician. He wouldn't care.
We would
Not
know,
gonna do
Nate.
that.
We would know. We would know, Nate.
Not going to do that, but I could do it. What about, is anybody else here? Do they have, what is your relationship with the cloud, Dale? I'm curious about your,
I'm very similar to you. For files and pictures, I just use Google, and for more sensitive information, I use Bitwarden. That's about it.
yeah. How about you, Colin? I know, like, being down under, you probably have kangaroos trying to steal your data all the time, I'm sure.
I mainly use hard drives at home, but I do have just on the just in case Google. I put photos on Google Drive, just in case. But I mean, I don't put all of them. Just family photos that maybe needed just in the event that something drastic happens. You've got something to look back on. That's something there that you can at least download. So every now and then I might update some latest family photos and that. That's about it. You don't need all of them. You just need some of them. Just memories. That's all you need. So that's the way I manage it.
Yeah. Is anyone here use like something like Backblaze? A kind of like a you could call it like a data fire insurance. It's inexpensive to put it out, there, and then I think it has like a 1 year something, and then it basically costs to pull it back. But ideally, you would never actually pull the data back, only if something absolutely tragic happens. So it's more like a fire insurance kind of relationship. But anybody else want to like volunteer their
Yeah.
cloud storage? Yeah.
What happened to me during the pandemic was I had an iPad that needed its screen to be replaced. But unfortunately, it was during the pandemic, and so a lot of shops that would do repairs were closed. I took it around the corner to what was supposed to be a repair place, and 8 years of data got wiped off.
Oh,
Irreplaceable stuff. So when we speak on losing data, that hits pretty close to home. because a lot of those were family photos that, are gone. And so it's a sobering thought how easily that would have been prevented had I had an iCloud that I was saving stuff to. That would have been good. It's other ways that would have been. It's not like I didn't know. But sometimes you can know and still don't act in time to save things that's important to you. And then when you lose it, then you're like, oh my God, I should have did this, I should have did that. I have used Mega. I have Google Drive. What else do I use? iCloud. iCloud. Those are, oh, and I do have Dropbox, but they're probably going to yell at me that it's filled again. I don't put nothing else on there, but it's just, since then, the stuff that I have, the most important stuff I have, not only is it saved in the cloud, but it's on different USB drives, it's on different computers, and it's stuff that's not in the same location. Yeah. Not getting me again.
Yeah.
I lost a bunch of photos to my own doing. When I got this phone, I was swapping SIM cards from the old phone to this one. I had 1,800 pictures on it, and not paying attention, I formatted the card. Oops.
Yeah. And see that the fact that our lives are on these phones, that becomes a bigger mess. It's one thing when we just have flip phones and we call people, we text, ha ha ha. But now that our lives are on these computers, all that stuff matters even more. Our lives are on these crazy things. It's just that's how it's become.
One thing
I've wiped my personal data twice with my own doing, and the first time it took me like a week to get it all back. So I actually got it all back from the disk because it was just a simple wipe anyway. But I managed to get it all back, and I had to rename everything and order it and put it in order. Oh, it was a nightmare. Oh, I did it again. Writing something to a USB disk, and I wrote it to the wrong one, right? I wrote it to a hard drive, right? It's simple things. And I thought, oh, not this again.
I did that with DD.
Your heart just sinks when you do stuff like that.
Yep.
Well, if you ever do something like that, I'm going to recommend some software called Disk Drill, and it will go sector by sector. Doesn't even have to have a partition table on it, and it'll pull the data back off. I mean, it takes a long time because it scans each individual sector of the drive, but it will get the data back. I did a job for I'm
asking for a friend.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about it. But do you have a
There's yeah, I'll put it in the chat here. There's a free version, but the free version will only show you the files. It won't let you recover them, so you have to get the pro. But it's available out there for free and non-official means, but we won't get into that. But I did a job for one of my wife's friends. She wrote a bunch of geology books, and they were all on this 3 terabyte external drive, and the drive had become corrupted somehow, and it would no longer mount in the computer. So she mailed me the drive, and I put it in this computer and ran disk drill against it. And it took about 2.5 days of just continuously scanning, but it got every bit of data back off the drive. So if there's something valuable to you, it's worth paying the money. It's not a cheap software, though. I think the pro version is like $900, but
well,
I've used PhotoRec. I don't know if anyone's used PhotoRec.
PhotoRec is really good.
PhotoRec, which is sorry?
No, nothing.
I've used it. It's good.
PhotoRec.
Yeah, it's command line. It's a command line one.
So one of the things that I think is important to note too in situations where people like select the wrong drive or like let's say you format the wrong disk, whatever, the first thing you should always do is just stop. A lot of people have the tendency to keep trying to fiddle with stuff, and what happens is they write over more data that they could have recovered, So you go straight into like recover with proper tools mode, not try and do things yourself mode. And the reason that's important is because especially for flash drives and stuff like that, those are usually formatted with FAT32 or exFAT or whatever. The FAT is file allocation table. The way they all typically work basically is that the beginning of the drive is what controls the thing that says, hey, all of these files exist. The first thing that gets erased is that file allocation table. Weird design, but it was the 70s. I don't know. What's really cool is modern file systems like ext4, I think even BTRFS does this, stuff like that. Like on a Linux system, if you erase something, there's a spare copy at the back, at the very end of the disk. There's a spare copy. So when your OS tries to fix some stuff, you can restore that copy back to the front of the disk and get your stuff back. Really good stuff. I think NTFS is weird, or not just ext4. I think GUID in general. So, if you're using GUID instead of MBR, which is master boot record, you should have a second copy of that partition table and that stuff at the end of the disk. So stop before you mess it up.
Certain storage devices, like those from SanDisk, once the firmware detects that corruption is happening, it automatically enables write protection, so you cannot write anymore to the disk.
Yep.
So there are some devices, some disk out there that are intelligent enough to do that. So you could at least get the data off of it before it completely dies on you.
Cool. So PhotoRec is in the official OpenSUSE repositories. There's also a QPhotoRec in the KDE store. So I will explore that later because someone may have had a collection of movies and TV shows on a drive and may have tried to format it so it could install, went to the wrong device for something. So, but
You got to make sure
I just looked on the Disk Drill website. It's actually cheaper than it used to be. There's a 2 Pro ones. The top tier one is $500. I know that sounds like a lot of money, but if you have some very valuable software, I mean, or data, I mean, it could be priceless to certain people. So
it's not.
But like I said,
to me at all. It's just movies.
No, but like I said, I've on this person's drive, I attempted to use a couple of different solutions. They didn't really work. This drill worked. But I didn't pay for my copy. I got it through other means, but
someone
we'll
paid
just
for
leave it at that. Yeah.
Well, cool. So PhotoRec. Well, thank you very much for that. QPhotoRec is disk drill. All right. Anyway, cool, awesome. Well, I learned a lot, and I'm pretty excited. So that's every Linux Saloon. I get a little nugget of something that I can use after the fact. Which, by the way, Jinda, guess what I used recently? Like, it's not this past week, but the week before. Take a guess.
Oh, you were at Angry IT Scanner again?
Yeah. So, yep, that is such an amazing tool. Anyway,
I don't know why I needed it. One day I decided that I wanted that, and I'm pretty sure I didn't have a reason of needing it. I just thought that would be something that we have.
Well,
so I found it.
Yeah, it definitely is a useful tool. So anyway, so I guess it's time to move on to the news flight. Oh, do we have anything else you want to say about cloud data storage before we kind of like morphed into backups? Anything? No? Alrighty. I guess we can move on to our news flight night. So the whole
Nate, face palm at this, dude, but I have to reboot. I just had a kernel update.
Great timing. I love it.
Yes.
Well, sorry. Perfect. I will be right back.
That's all right.
Take long.
Have a ball.
Again, this should not, but you never know because it's an NVIDIA system. So
you never know. So we'll see you next week. He's frozen. I love it. So schykle, you volunteered to kick this thing off, and I love it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Anytime somebody, wants to do some, some of the reading and such.
Oh,
About
absolutely. I love to hear myself talk.
I do too. Not me, you. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, some amazing things have happened this week in terms of the Linux news. Everybody's favorite Linux distribution, Linux Mint, announced a new release. I believe on the 16th. The ISOs were available just a day before that. And there's some really neat things going on here. And I think the one that stands out to me the most is that they've made some really big changes to how updates and package management is done. Some of these things are necessary, like in terms of moving forward, getting infrastructure working for future updates. And some of these things are just really, really nice refactoring and cleanup of how package installing is done on Linux Mint. So they've improved localization. They've removed a lot of dependencies that didn't really need to be there and kind of fixed things in other areas. And one of the nice things about this is that this is going to improve Wayland support moving forward. And that is kind of the future of pretty much every Linux desktop, as we know. Like, you got to have Wayland support. That's got to be working. So they're really cleaning up the piping for all of this stuff to work. But Cinnamon got a bunch of love as well, as always. They've got some new themes going on there. They've got better dialog boxes. So sometimes you get a little pop-up and it would just kind of be like a bar and all the buttons were part of the same thing. So you click on the text that you want to select, but sometimes it wasn't super clear where the boundaries were on that. They've got better Wayland compatibility. And I think for anybody who has a laptop, the biggest thing this release is going to be improved like power modes. So that's something we talked about last week, I believe, in terms of like power saving, performance mode, balanced mode, things like that. So they must have been listening to us, because that is actually something that they introduced in, was it 22.1, I think, is this release. So, and I believe it's called, I'm going to pronounce it Zia, but it might be Xia, XIA. I don't know how that's pronounced, but another day, another Linux project with pronunciations that we can't quite
Yeah.
we can't guess 100%. And then they also added a nightlight feature. So for those of you that have tendencies to use your screens, especially closer to night or in sort of darker settings, so you can have that nice red shifting of your desktop, and that works in both X and Wayland. So that's good stuff to see. A whole bunch of other things that they've added, but those are the really big points here, from what I can tell. So,
well, one, I think that what stands out most to me is because Cinnamon is a very popular desktop environment. A lot of people use that. The fact that it's now moving to Wayland, and as far I think it said it was experimental, or is it full? This is both Xorg and Wayland. I thought I read somewhere that it was like not quite ironed out, I guess. Maybe I'm reading that wrong. Maybe it was the last release. I'm sure Leo would know. He's in the chat. But I'm just really happy to see that, because I think the more momentum behind Wayland. Not that I'm anti-Xorg, but it's time to move on to more modern technologies as far as that's concerned. I mean, basically Windows has moved on their display server a long time ago. Nobody ever noticed. Long time ago they've changed it. I mean, they keep changing it. And Mac changed it too. Nobody noticed. So the fact that we notice in Linux is funny.
Well, the Linux Mint team, I think, announced initially that the goal is to have everything ready for 2604. The 2604 raised Linux Mint.
So I've got a brother-in-law that I put Linux Mint on his computer. It'd be probably just 22, I think, or maybe 21 something. I'm not sure. he was having problems with his Windows. Took about 10 minutes to start up. There was an issue there. I fixed it once before. Couldn't remember the fixes that I'd implemented to get it working, but I put Linux Mint on there. And just yesterday, I seen him and I said, "How's your computer going?" "Yeah, I just do what I normally do and whatever." I said, "Okay, no problems." "No." So good.
That's amazing.
No problem at all. So yeah, and that's probably the third family member I've given Linux Mint to. So it's a good computer. It's a good operating system, good distro. It just works. So you can always rely on that to just get the job done. For people who don't even know really what Linux is, they only heard me talk about it. And when they hear me talk about it, I don't talk them into using it. They just one day say, "This is not working. How about that Linux thing? Do you think you can do that?" I suss it out first before I give it to them, just in case it's a bad idea. So it just depends on their use case as well, which was spoken many times about here on the channel. Use case is very important.
Absolutely. Yeah. I kind of took almost an opposite approach to you in that I switched to my mother without her knowledge. I could just
Well done.
The main the PC in her room, you know, I mean, I was always fixing something on it, and I was like, I wonder if I do this, if she'll even notice. And you know, I just remember her at one point asking if there was like an update on it because it looked different, and I was like, yeah, I definitely updated some things, and I didn't really hear anything else about it. It just worked. So, you know,
I did the same thing with mine. I put Debian with Plasma, and
yep.
looks the same as far as she. I put the same wallpaper that she had on there, and
Yeah,
the
right.
same,
Yeah.
the same web browser, and never really noticed.
I'll say, I think it honestly
Cool.
went even better than I initially anticipated because, you know, my mother plays a lot of solitaire, and Windows used to have a pretty on Windows 7 they had like the games collection, whatever, and solitaire was a big part of that. And they changed things with Windows 8 and 10 and whatever, and now it's this huge, weird, ad-riddled, you can buy a subscription, whatever
Yeah.
kind of thing. But K-Patience, thank you,
Gross.
KDE developers. She loves KPAT. KPAT is awesome, great. There's just it's simple. She can just play solitaire, get on with her life. So good.
I gotta tell my little story about my mother. She's 80 years old now and still with me. But about 10 years ago, she said, "I want a computer." And I said, in my brain, I thought, "No, you don't." But I said, okay. And so I put together some scrap parts and made her a computer. And 6 months later, she loved it. And of course, I had Linux on it, scrap computer, you know. So I know I had KDE, but I don't remember what it was, probably Kubuntu. So we went to the store. She picked one out. I said, "Yes, that's a good one." Got it home, and I said, "So this comes with Windows on it." I think it was Windows 7 or 10 at the time. I don't remember. But I said, "This comes with Windows, and I'm going to let you try it because if you don't like it, I can easily put Linux on it. Just give it a try and see if you like it." It was the next day that she said, "I don't like this. Make it like the other one." So thought that was pretty funny. She's been using Kubuntu ever since. She's 80 years old. Of course, KDE Plasma, and that's all she's really ever known, and she gets along with it just fine and dandy.
That is
That's
incredible.
awesome.
That's fantastic.
I heard about a study. I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard a story where they got some elderly people that were not computer savvy to try some computer operating systems, and they had like Mac and Linux and Windows. They'd never used a computer before, and the data showed that they had an easier time learning Linux than they did Windows or Mac. Now, I don't know if this story was true, but I've heard this story more than once. So
It's probably GNOME, because GNOME was just simple to use, and it's
Yeah,
kind of hard to
probably.
like. It's not easy
But-
to. It's not as easy to break, but it makes me want to break it.
But I think this was back when like Ubuntu was still using Unity. I think it was like back in those days. So
Yeah, Unity would be a great. I think that'd be a great version for that's a very nice interface. Welcome, Vince and Eric. Nice to have you guys.
Happy Australia Day.
G'day, guys.
Happy Australia Day. I didn't know there was such a thing.
Happy.
Is
It is Australia Day, yeah.
is that like your independence?
Australia Day.
No, we say it's Australia.
Yeah, we just call it Straya. Straya. There you go, Straya. It's easier to pronounce.
Is it like our 4th of July? Do you like light off fireworks and eat hot dogs and hamburgers around the grill and
some people are trying to change it to Invasion Day because it's when Captain Cook came over and took over the land and whatever. But
holy cow, it's Vince, it's Colin, the whole gang is here. Jeez.
it's our public holiday.
You got that problem in Australia too. I figured everyone had to be tough in Australia and not be like whatever.
It's worldwide.
well, not
phenomenon.
not everybody in Australia is Paul Hogan.
I just automatically assume everyone in Australia is tougher than I am. Like just tough.
Probably better
tougher
Paul
people.
Hogan than Hulk Hogan.
Oh, God.
Paul Hogan, Hulk Hogan.
Well, anyway,
I must say, Vince, I hope you stick around for my little surprise news at the end of the show.
he's waiting with bated breath.
Yeah, no, I think I heard Jinda talking about DeepSeek.
No,
this
that
week.
was me. That was me.
Well, not usually Ben. Yes. Oh, sorry, Ben. Somebody was
That's
talking about
not the
AI earlier.
surprise, man. That was not the surprise.
That's some huge open source news that came out this week. This new DeepSeek model is doing incredible things.
Yeah.
I saw.
Well, like I said earlier, it actually helped me set up a Hackintosh on one of my machines. But if you want to hear more about it, you can go back into the rest of the recording. But yeah,
I've never heard of DeepSeek, man.
So software coding other software. It's kind of like Skynet's robots building robots, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the idea was it's instead of using all the energy that OpenAI and sort of Gemini are using to create these models, it's sort of tailing off some of the stuff that's already been done to then sort of further refine these models to make it easier to make newer stuff, if that kind of makes sense. I don't know. The explanation is complicated. I don't really get it properly myself.
it's
The problem that I see with technology like this, though, is it's just like when graphing calculators became a thing. It makes people become lazies, and they'll depend on the technology to do all the brain work for them, and then
my counter to
we
that
all
would
kinda
be,
go,
my counter to that would be like we could walk everywhere, but we don't. We
or horse and buggy.
we drive a car. Yeah.
We would be
Like
much
a
more
sail
healthier if
instead of,
we walked everywhere instead of taking the car everywhere. Just saying.
yeah. It
Healthy.
well,
Yeah,
like
but
I said, my
Eris?
script that I made with it, it's not designed to take all the hard work out of the USB creation. It's just designed to help with it doesn't make a full-on config.plist for the system. It just it doesn't automate everything, just like the basics and that kind of thing. So.
Well, I don't think I would use something like that because I'm just so meticulous, maybe even a little OCD. I have to go
You like
through
to do
everything.
things the hard way, Matt.
Well, I have. It's not even about doing it the hard way. I just have to put eyes on it and make sure it's exactly right, or I'm not going to be happy about it. I have to see it.
So you
for
like
that
to
peace of
see
mind.
you like to see what's behind the scenes, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah,
So here's the thing.
or just
When
double check what was done. Well,
Okay.
I used to work as a mechanic, for example, and because of my health, I don't do that work anymore. But when I have a mechanic work on my car, I go back over everything he did to make sure he did it right.
yeah.
I'm insufferable.
So why'd you hire him in the first place?
So yeah.
Because
Well, I'm kind of the same way. I like to pound at something until it completely works, so to speak. So, I mean, I know
So
that sounds
here's
kinda like-
Here's some
who here
rationale
uses-
here. When I use this stuff at work, because I use AI coding tools at work. They're not paying me money because I can type fast. The typing is not the important part. My ability to
No.
put components together to build a solution is the important part. So the fact that the AI is writing a function or whatever is not all that important. As long as it's, I still scan it with static analysis and other security tools. It's still, kosher code, but it's not important that I'm the one typing it. Learning syntax is dead. Learn how to build things instead.
Well,
Yeah.
the only point that I was making originally is there's people today, full-grown adults, they can't even do basic math because every time they have to do math, they just use a calculator. And I think
Okay,
that
do
a
you
lot
memorize
of
all the
AI
numbers
tools,
in your phone?
well, I mean,
It's a silly thing to think that people are lazy because they have tools that make it easier. Like that doesn't make
no,
any,
but I mean,
that
what
doesn't
I'm
really
saying
work.
is a lot of people don't learn it because they don't have to learn it, and they should learn it. That's really,
Well,
it's
that's
sure they
it.
learned it. I just don't think they feel the need to use it every day. So
That's
the calculator does it. Why would I bother?
That's a cultural thing, though. I mean, like, it doesn't matter. I think humans will generally go to being lazy, generally speaking, not always. So that's kind of a normal thing in all things with society. So it's good that some people are going to pull the one direction. I think, like, you can whittle and do woodwork that way. You can also use a CNC to carve your wood as well, to carve wood. On a CNC lathe to make your table legs instead of doing it by hand. So I guess, I mean, really, it's a personal decision.
I think
I wanted to welcome, though, Adam and Servan. He hasn't been here in a while. Welcome. Thank you.
so the example
you were gonna
about
say something?
carving by hand. I don't think a CNC would put that finish on there. So
Actually, yeah, they have
they
automation
can.
that'll do that.
I think
I could do that.
something that's important to realize too is that collectively as a species, we've not gotten to the point that we are by all having the exact same level of skills in all the exact same specific areas. We've built tools to allow our entire species to build upon and get
Right.
better at things and then specialize with. My inability to remember my times table past 12 doesn't really make me unable to code. My inability to do a lot of things doesn't mean that I can't do things with those skills, because it's not always about just memorization isn't a skill that gives you these things. It's understanding the concept of the things you're applying. So if I know how to use a calculator to get the result I want, I'm using tools that were built to do that, because rather than expending that effort and that time where we've already as a species figured that part out, and I understand the concept of what order to put the numbers in and where they need to go. I'm just skipping the step where I have to get a pen and a paper and write it down.
yeah, but if we lose those skills because technology does it for us, what happens if some crazy thing happens where the technology no longer functions? There's been evidence of ancient civilizations where people were extremely intelligent and it was all lost for whatever reason. And I think people should learn how to do it first. I mean, I'm not saying don't use the tools, but understand how to do it before using the tools. So in case the tools are never available again for whatever crazy reason, you're not left in the dark ages. It's at least have the ability to do it first. That's all I'm saying.
I'd make the case that in a situation where all those tools are stripped from us, the necessity to use the tools at that level is also gone. So we don't really
Yeah.
if we're at that point, we're starting over anyway.
You've got more to worry about.
Yeah. And we know how to count, we know how to do those things, but in that kind of scenario, there's no need to know those things because everything else is already way beyond that point.
Man, I don't have ChatGPT. I can't find food now.
That would be a great TV show.
You
though.
joke, but
Hey, I mean,
I can
some
see us
people,
getting to that point.
if Uber Eats disappears, some people might starve. I'm just saying.
Well, I think,
TV show. I'm a Linux user. Get me out of here.
I
I
think
think
that
there is an absolute truth to your mental acuity being reduced when you don't have to think for yourself in some regards. So, I mean, I feel like I've had the advantage of living in this slice of history where I've seen it from like the analog days through to where we are today, right? And I can have that perspective of like living in a world where there, you know, your house had one phone with the long cord and you had to share it. And if you left the house, you would basically disappeared into the ether and no one knew where you were. I mean, you had a reasonable idea,
Sounds
but
glorious.
you know, do you remember the
Oh,
how
yeah.
good that felt?
I still do that,
you know,
actually.
but on the same token, like as wonderful it is as it is to have all of, you know, the knowledge of humanity at your fingertips, I will also say that it does make me a lazier person because I can use that calculator, or I can just look it up on Google. Like I know that knowledge is disposable because I can just go back and get it again. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't
have to
think
remember
that's
stuff.
lazy. That's just progress.
Okay.
Like people,
All right.
like technology is getting better. People are getting better. It's like just progress. I don't think it's.
Well,
That's
in
fair.
certain cases, the technology becomes a hindrance. I know we're talking about tech here, but I'll go back to my expertise working on cars. We have a certain thing in the automotive world in diagnostics called NVH, or noise, vibration, and harshness. And there's an interesting set of mathematical formulas that you could use to, like, let's say that a vehicle is having a vibration and you don't know where it's coming from. Well, there's a device called a spirometer, and it's analog. It's just a round disc with a little wire on it, and it just vibrates. And there's numbers on a dial. And when that little wire is vibrating at its maximum amount back and forth, you look at the dial, and it'll actually tell you what the frequency of that vibration is. You can take that number and plug it into do a little trigonometry, plug that into an equation, taking, let's say that it's an 8-cylinder engine. The main pulley on the engine is 8 inches, and then you get the frequency and plug that in there, and the output of that equation will tell you exactly what part of that car is vibrating, and you don't have to guess. And there's no calculator or computer device that I know of that can do that kind of calculation, because it's very, it's very subjective as to what is happening right in front of you. And I think a lot of other technologies are the same way. Like what happens if you depend on the AI to write code or a calculator to do math, and something in the code malfunctions? Well, are you just going to sit there scratching your head, or are you going to just be able to dissect it and figure out where it went wrong? Having the skill to be able to do that, I think, is important.
Maybe I wouldn't put myself in an environment where that's not available.
Well, maybe, but you may not have the choice one day. I mean, I think we take a lot of things for granted.
Well, why don't I just put a pistol in my mouth at that point? Because everything's gone, you know?
So
I think also to
it's
be
reductionist.
clear,
That's the point I'm making.
to be clear, there
if it
is
disappears, somebody has to rebuild it, and you can't rebuild it without having the skills or the knowledge.
There are a couple of things here. Like, right, one is documentation. When we're building these tools, like, documentation's important. So if we don't have the tools, we can rebuild them. So tip your documenters on open source
and
projects.
Guess who does really great documentation?
Yeah, but the issue is most of these products are made.
No, I'm serious.
LLMs are amazing.
They do.
It's
They
not
do
public
great.
knowledge.
Great documentation.
They do really well.
Oh my God.
Another thing though, I think is also really like important to like remember is that it's easy to see ourselves as being lazy when we use tools instead of doing things manually, and sometimes there is enrichment in doing things manually. But I think it's also important to realize that like if the goal that you're trying to attain is attained by using these tools, you're not more lazy. You've just gotten exactly what you wanted more efficiently. Like that's
being able to do more, like as in be more productive.
Like you can expend that energy that you otherwise would have spent doing more. And it's not that it's always required, like there is satisfaction in getting your hands dirty and doing stuff. Like I love tinkering with stuff, and I love tearing cars apart. It's great. But I also know that like especially as somebody who has mostly experience with German vehicles, boy, do I sure love just having the computer tell me exactly what's wrong and where, and most of my work is fixing it and not figuring out what to fix.
And having those vehicles break down a lot. I know,
Yeah,
I know you. I feel you,
hey,
man.
job security.
I think
Well,
from
well,
what I've seen over the years, for myself, you got hobbies, you got workplace, right? So tools come in handy for the workplace because they've made people do jobs of probably 2 or 3 people these days as an individual, and you need all the
Time
tools
is
you
money.
can get to get jobs done. Time is money. Get jobs done real quick. As a hobby, you might take time to learn things the right way, which is probably the best way because you want to understand it. But you're not going to take that time in the workplace because you just need to get things done. And I've noticed that shift in the way that we do things in the workplace over the years. Because when I first started in the workplace many years ago, people had time to do things, write things down, and teach people and whatever. But these days, it's just such a fast pace, and I think that's where the tools come in handy today. But as a hobby, I can see you can probably, do the old school way to if you really want to learn things. But that's an individual thing, though, isn't it?
Well, but all I'm saying is that you should at least learn how to do it first, so you understand it, and then use the tools. I worked in retail for a while, and we had a power outage, and nobody could use a cash register and count money without the power. It's like, this is easy.
Sure.
This is the easiest basic math that there is, and these people can't do it, and they had to close the store.
So
it's like you
the
get
other thing, too,
you
though,
get
is-
the paper out from under the till, you write it down, and then you add 13% for the tax, and that's it. But
So let's talk
nobody
about-
could do it because they never learned how to do it. The cash register always did it for them, and that's
you wouldn't-
that's the only argument that I'm making is you should
and
learn
that's-
the
that's a valid
knowledge on
argument.
how it works first. But
also my
you know, I'm
counter
not
to that
saying
would be
don't.
you're not going to have
Yeah,
with a no power. You can't accept cards. You can't open the cash register because that's triggered by a digital solenoid that would open up the cash register even for cash, and so you wouldn't be able to do that. And also the way accounting is done, if not for that digital record, the retail store is going to have a lot of problems, especially a larger one. Now, a small mom and pop, yeah, could probably handle that, but mom and pop shops are basically being snuffed out.
Well, it was a national chain of auto parts store, and there were protocols for that because sometimes networks go down, the internet doesn't work. When the internet doesn't work, the credit card machine doesn't work, and all this kind of stuff. And nobody in the whole place knew how to do this. There's under every register was a box of log sheets. If there was an issue that cash register working or anything like that, you go down there, get a box, and you had the paper and you had everything by hand, and it was like a spreadsheet kind of layout, and it even had like a conversion chart on the side for you to even calculate the taxes, and people couldn't figure it out. And that's all I'm saying is you should learn how it's done first in case you ever need it, so you don't have to rely 100% on these automated tools to get it done. I'm not saying don't use the automated tools, but know how it works. That's all I'm saying.
I've got another possible alternative future, let's say, which is, okay, how many of you watch Star Trek or appreciate Star Trek, right? Most people would say that the Star Trek future, people aren't worse off for not being able to use a mouse and keyboard, or not being able to, except for Scotty, that time when he went back to 1984 and he couldn't use the Mac because,
Hello,
remember that time? Yeah, exactly. But most people wouldn't say that the Star Trek future exists and people are worse off for it, for not being able to interact with the computers through terminal or mouse and keyboard, right? They interact with the computers through natural language. So computer, do this, computer, do that. And the computer then responds with this and that, right? It does its task. It understands the context of what you're saying. Now, we can't actually get to that future. We can't get to that future. Yeah, we can't get to that future until we have these large language models. It's almost an essential part of how we get to being able to interact with machines in a more natural, human-like way. And that's where I saw the excitement. I was a kid growing up, thinking that having personal communicators were so way out there that, it was just a dream. And now what do we have, right? And I also thought that being able to interact with my computer or my phone or whatever with just speaking to it with natural language was going to be at least another 10 years away, 5 years away, whatever. But it's here. It is now. If you Gemini is a thing. Gemini Live is a thing. There's a whole bunch of new OpenAI stuff that they're doing that basically can you can interact with your phone. Like you can actually tell your phone to interact with an app just through voice. And now that might sound like what Google Assistant does, but it's a whole new different thing because it doesn't need to have a preset API that's connected to that app. It'll just know what's on your screen.
What's also really nice about this is that there's a massive accessibility factor when it comes to large language models and interacting with technology. Like I know what the nightlight feature is on my phone. I know where to go to find it. But there are a lot of steps to get to that little toggle because I don't have it on my main top screen. Some people don't even know it exists. But and this was an example in the latest waveform thing, but you could just be like, hey G, like my eyes are hurting a little bit, and it'll adjust the screen for you. And I think it's more about finding ways to make technology more useful for more people and less about trying to I don't feel like we're dumbing things down. I don't think we're collectively the people that are going to make the choice to not learn things are always going to be the people who make the choice to not learn things. And with or without large language models, like that's always going to be the case. But there are enough people that do care about these things. There are engineers, there are people who are curious, there are people who want to do these things. And those are the people that also help build the tools that make having a conversation with your computer possible. I think it's really, really important, especially there are so many different ways that everybody interfaces with computers, and some of them are easy, some of them are hard, and it really just depends on who it is on the other end of the device.
I'd like to sort of just back up a little bit what Matt's saying. So there are examples of all these things. So number one, if we rely on power, right, to get our water, to get our energy and all that sort of thing. So without it, pretty much we're all up the creek without a paddle, right? Then you're going to be trying to work your way through, how do I get water if I don't have water tanks and whatever from the rain or whatever. So, I mean, there are certain things that we do rely on in the world, right? 5G, internet, connected to all these devices that we have. If that goes down, what do we do, right? Because it's controlled by certain people. If they decide to flick the switch, they probably could, right? If you want to look at it from a conspiracy point of view, and it's not even a conspiracy. I mean, it can happen. It can go down, and they can decide whether they want to turn it back on or not. What do we do in that case, right?
That's why you self-host.
Yeah, if you want to put fuel in the car, you need power to pump fuel in the car, right? It's just like water as well. There's little things that we take for granted that in this world. And it's not only that, with the new AI and all that, what if you got people like Matt's talking about that don't understand how the code works? I know Adam was talking about he uses tools to check the code out. You could have people out there putting stuff in, maybe AI is wrong, put something sinister within the code. I mean, that person wouldn't know, would they? But they know about these tools.
So we could talk about all these potential negatives, or we could talk about someone who's blind or deaf being able to order some food or a plane ticket without the assistance of somebody else. I think you've got to balance it out with what's possible in terms of benefits as well.
So
I
Is
think
that
it's
the-
also
is that the-
important
yeah,
to note
for
that
sure.
you mentioned like the code could be wrong and things like that. Experienced programmers with a lot of just like talent do the same thing. People who
Right.
actually
Yeah,
know what
yeah.
they're doing make the same
The
choices.
assumption here is that humans don't make mistakes
Yeah.
when they really do.
I think the thing too is like it doesn't necessarily produce perfect code for you, but it does give you like a what I like it for is it gives me an 80% solution, and then I can take it the last 20%, or maybe 90%, last
You know,
10%.
Here's the
Some of the
thing.
models
Here's the thing that
really do get
yeah,
close.
but it's we're
So-
not talking about 80% anymore. We're talking about really
yeah.
close.
Well,
Like, you
I know,
don't
but
have to touch
I,
it
I can
twice.
write an entire web app without ever writing a single line of code, and it's a functional
Is that right?
web app.
Wow.
well, it's cool.
Yeah, this stuff is accelerated so much beyond what most folks kind of look at it as like a snapshot in time. Like if it did the cool thing for you 6 months ago, it's like, yeah, that's what you remember, but 6 months later, it does way more and way better. And it moves so fast. This entire field has moved so fast. It's hard to keep up with, but it also means that people who like grab a snapshot in time of what these tools are capable of miss out on what it actually can do because your assumptions are old.
Well,
Yeah,
anyway,
I think that was my original point was that even just this past week has been so rapid in terms of the stuff that's been out there. Like, it really is important that, and particularly if we have children or if we have anybody else, or if we plan to live for the next 20 years, right? Most of us, do. Keeping abreast of some of these changes, I think, is it's gonna affect you. I can guarantee you it will. Whether you like it or not, it's coming to affect you.
But to Adam's point, though, it's basically an impossible task to stay on top of it.
At least right now.
So
yeah.
you can know your own little corner of it,
Right.
maybe,
Right.
if you're even able to know that much. So that I think is the one thing that is difficult for most people to come to terms with, is that it is making such a radical paradigm shift in the world that honestly, you think about, you have just such a small handful of humanity that has basically shifted so much of the concepts of how the world works in such a short amount of time in a fundamental way. And it just feels very potentially dangerous because
Don't get me wrong, I'm not happy that it's in the hands of these tech bros entirely. Right?
yeah, someone yeah, and that's the problem, is I think that
Well, I mean, there's-
those people to me are the least qualified people to make these kinds of decisions for humanity.
But there are a lot of it's open source, so it's not like it's just proprietary.
What does that mean, though?
Well,
Who's going to
the-
check
the
it?
biggest models out there, the biggest, most capable stuff out there is not open source.
But there's
Well,
at least some that are, and so it's not like it's all being controlled by a
There
small.
are
okay.
quite a few that are, but the ones that are moving the needle in terms of market, in terms of actual impact on people, in terms of mind share, are not open source.
Like Copilot.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Where's the
Like
year of the Linux desktop?
Microsoft's Copilot, OpenAI stuff, all the Claude, like Anthropic stuff is not open source. There's a ton of stuff that everyday people use, everyday people rely on, and everyday people think of when they think of AI that is not open source. The open source stuff is still the enthusiast backend. This DeepSeek and the DeepSeek R1 and DeepSeek V3 getting any amount of mainstream coverage is the first time I've seen open source AI stuff even talked about by regular tech people.
So Adam, just to ask you, when
Brave
you
new
do
world.
write a code through AI, what do you use desktop applications, or you use that online through a browser? How do you do that?
Most depends on what I'm doing. So if
Right.
I'm writing actual code, then I use either VS Code with either GitHub Copilot as an extension or an extension called Cline, CLINE.
Right.
Or I use an editor called Cursor. That's another one that I've used. And then sometimes if I need like some more advanced kind of reasoning through a problem or through a solution, I'll load up ChatGPT with like O1 Pro, something like that. Something a little more that has a reasoning model to it that can kind of rethink of the stuff instead of just regurgitate. And so, although regurgitate, I'm being regressive there, but point is like it's a more thoughtful model. It thinks about what it's actually doing and has reasoning and all of that. And I'll put it through that if it really can't figure it out. But as far as the actual editing goes, like writing the code itself, I often do that in the editor with extensions.
I'm not going to lie, it's pretty cool that it can do that, though. I must say, I haven't really
I've
got
shown
on
Vince how it
board
works.
to.
It's pretty awesome.
So
Yeah, I haven't really got on board with all this AI stuff yet.
So, Srad Joker.
Yep.
Yeah, it's me.
Mr. Ravon.
Yeah. So yeah, interesting talking about AI. Like I just got a new laptop today. It's a Copilot. It's termed a Copilot laptop. It's Windows on ARM. These are Snapdragon chips which have a NPU, neural processing unit. So the Copilot runs some of the stuff locally instead of on the cloud. So I've not used it too much, but it's like AI on the device rather than the cloud. So I've been trying out some stuff. I don't know about the results, but like extending on what other people are saying, I think more and more devices will be capable of doing AI stuff locally rather than doing it on the cloud.
I mean, it's a brave new world, I guess. So, I did want to get to the news. I know unless someone has anything else they want to talk about, I mean, because I don't want to like beat the AI thing into absolute submission. Because I mean, unless someone's like, we good? Schykle, you're going to say something, Schykle?
I was just gonna say I had a conversation with Gemini Live about picking plants for a garden, and I just think that's really cool.
Gemini Live, man.
You know,
oh my gosh, it's my new best friend.
Yeah, I've been using Grok for asking just random questions about
I
like
see how it is, Vince.
how you can make the I was actually talking about asking ideas for like 12 Days of Christmas to like actually celebrate it, not just the commercialization, but like the what it's meant to be. And it was actually some really good suggestions that it drew from different cultural bits and pieces that I thought was actually really quite interesting. But anyway, so some exciting news. If anyone here uses Wine on Linux, version 10.0 has arrived. Anybody hear about this? Does anybody care?
Yeah, I heard about it.
Main thing I knew about
Badly
was the
Arch doesn't
Wayland
have it
driver.
yet, I don't think, do they?
I don't think a lot of people use it directly, but it's now, used in so many different kind of projects that it is important. So what's up with 10?
So what's neat about 10 is that it has a lot of refinements. So now the refined Wayland driver, improved scaling for high DPI displays, and an opt-in FFmpeg based multimedia backend, and it ships with upgraded tools like Vulkan 1.4.303, VKD3D 1.14, a new experimental Bluetooth driver, because I know that's been an issue, and a patch for 8-bit color mode being broken on earlier versions of Wine. There's also plenty of game-focused changes, because Codeweavers and Valve are basically the main contributors to Wine. It's kind of the upstream. And so they include a crash fix for Forza Horizon 4. Is that a game you played, Adam? Forza Horizon? No? Assassin's Creed? No? There's like lags in the character selection. Also, Final Fantasy. Wait, XI would be 11, I think, right? Yeah.
Yes. That's
11 and launch failure fixes for multiple games. Also improved Dvorak keyboard support, better handling for network sessions in direct play, a fix for crash during startup on IL2 Sturmovik 1946. Never heard of it. And issue system tray icons being unresponsive when addressed. So also there's better support for 64-bit as well. So they're doing a lot of work on the 64-bit architecture aspect of it. So that's kind of exciting. A lot's moving there in Wine. So that was pretty cool. Now, if you are interested in checking it out, it is available in Debian, Ubuntu, Fedora, OpenSUSE, Slackware, FreeBSD, and macOS on the official website. I didn't say anything about Arch.
to answer Ben's question, it is on Arch. I'm looking right now. It's
Right, but I just checked.
2.0-1.
Hold on, Manjaro doesn't have it yet. They're a little behind.
Yeah, well, Manjaro's a couple weeks behind, but on stock Arch, it's 10.0-1.
Yeah, sadly, I don't have it yet.
Well, if you're on Manjaro, you can enable the unstable
testing.
and pin it and get it that way.
I might have to do that. Yeah.
So you can, that article is on, it's FOSS. Yep, it's in the chat. So I think it's pretty exciting. A lot of work being done there. Also, did anybody read, this is a while ago, how because of compatibility issues with like old Windows stuff to new Windows, they've been using Wine for Windows as well. Did anybody read that? Or is that just me that I scanned over that and
good question.
I don't know.
I actually have some games that on Windows that I have to use something like that because they're from Windows 95 and they won't run on anything past Windows 7. So I do some. I don't know if it's doing it through Wine or not, but I use it. Whatever it comes with, I forget what it's called now. I'm having a brain fart.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Anyway, I thought it was pretty exciting. I'm hoping that it just, sort of continues to improve. I think it will. So I guess we'll see what happens there. Be nice if TurboTax would work on that. That's for sure. But oh well, what can you do?
Yeah.
So some more exciting Linux news. Flatpak 1.16. It improves USB access, Wayland integration, and accessibility. So from OMG Ubuntu. It's the first stable release since the new in the new 1.16 release. 2 years after the 1.14 release came out. So so Flatpak apps access USB devices is improved in this version with the new input device permissions. And it's technically still a sandbox hole that should be treated with caution, but enables apps to purposely limit the scope of their access to USB input devices like controllers. So it's ideal for gamepads. It also introduces USB listing support, which allows Flatpak apps to list which USB devices they're intended to use. This is stored in a static metadata in the app, which is then used by XDG Desktop Portal to notify the app about the plugs and unplugs and eventually request for user permissions. So both editions offer obvious security and privacy benefits for users. So getting Flatpak apps
that can also be used. That can also be used to fix app themes, which is a big complaint a lot of people have.
Oh, seems like that'd be a different portal, but
yeah.
So the apps will be explicitly list USB devices they wish to access. Means the vetted storefronts like FlatHub is able to review requests prior to publishing. So I know there's a comment in the YouTube chat about, I can't remember who it was, but they were concerned about some sort of a like malware in FlatHub, but which hasn't reared its head yet or hasn't been caught yet. But this would also help to limit that. So users can now glean the level of USB access an app wants to allow deny permissions at any time. So anyway, some other changes. So getting spam by notifications from your terminal when installing or updating Flatpak apps in the command line. Adds opt-in environment variable, which stops progressive escape sequences from being emitted. This will stop terminals like Kitty, Foot, and PTYXIS from pinging you endlessly while Flatpak CLI progresses the bar shuffling along. So you can install Flatpak 1.16 on Ubuntu. So check that out. I have an issue with some Flatpak games. I want to see if anybody else has this issue. I've dug through several different. I've done a lot of searching, even asking a couple of different large language models, and I have some games where the keyboard doesn't work except for like cursor keys and enter, and nothing else does. It's like Xenotic. I can't use Xenotic. I have to use the native apps, native application, native packages. But like if I play Minecraft, that has no issues in the Flatpak. So I'm like wondering if it's a permissions thing, that something's blocking the keyboard. Has anybody experienced this before?
I think you're just
Could be
playing the
something
wrong games,
yeah.
Nate. No, you're just
Yeah,
playing the
you're
wrong
probably
games.
just playing the wrong games.
You need to choose better games to play.
All right, so I tried
I
playing.
think the problem is
Doom.
not everything's written in Java. You know, if it's written in Java, it works everywhere.
Even in Flatpak.
Okay.
I don't know if you've tried the flat seal.
Yes.
That's a utility that you can open up certain things to basically break them out of the sandbox if get certain things working. But
So it could be that the Flatpaks themselves have a version of SDL that's causing issues for the inputs, or like Vince said, you're just playing the wrong games.
Could be. All right. Well, I guess I'm playing the wrong games. So Minecraft works great. So I can play Minecraft with the kids, not a problem. I couldn't play. I think it was Crispy Doom. Like I was trying to load like the old WAD files, and I think it was Crispy Doom or GZ Doom, something like that. Wouldn't work, but as a Flatpak. But maybe I need to investigate that further. I even like turned off all the permissions. Like I opened up the floodgates that just go forth and do great things. It wouldn't work. I wonder if maybe it's a Wayland thing too. Could it possibly be Wayland?
it could be.
Yeah, I don't know.
I noticed on I use KD Plasma, and I know if I'm in a Wayland session, file pickers like if I try to send an email and want to use an attachment, the file picker is all wrong under Wayland. It's forcing the default GNOME file picker with client-side decorations, and it just doesn't work. So it's possible that something similar is happening under Wayland, where you're getting like the default GNOME cursor input, and maybe that's what's making it not work very well. I don't know. It's just I don't know. It's
Is the
just a thought.
Flatpak's code available?
I don't know.
Is it on like GitHub or GitLab or something like that? If you can find the code, you could load the code base into an LLM and have it debug it for you.
Probably not an LLM that I have access to.
Yeah.
I mean,
maybe what it is,
they're all
I'll get the
public.
code and I'll send it to you, Adam, and then you can use that with the tokens and credits you have.
Sure.
Or I'm just gonna probably just run the native packages and just move on.
Yeah, probably just easier.
Yeah, it's like how much is it is worth my time just to play? I want to burn 10 minutes of playing old Doom. It's all I want to do, and then I'll move on with life and living. So
Get it on your PlayStation.
Oh God.
That's hard to use.
All these Flatpak issues?
Yeah.
Were these all on Tumbleweed?
Yes.
So I guess it could be because you have the latest Flatpak, maybe? Maybe that's causing issues. That would be my thing. So I would just test with like Ubuntu or something.
That would
Maybe
require a
that's
lot
the
of extra work too.
Well, I'm on Arch here, and I haven't noticed any issues like that, but I'm probably not using the same applications you are.
Could be. I need to test it out some more, but again, if I just run the native packages, it's fine. I just don't like to.
Nate, you're probably gonna be disappointed in me for this, my friend, but I have decided to take the plunge. I am going to the Manjaro unstable branch.
In my experience,
still might
the
be the word.
unstable branch is more stable than the stable one, in my experience.
Really, Matt?
Why not just use Arch at that point?
Yeah, exactly. Why not just use Arch?
Well, here's the reason why. The reason why Manjaro breaks is because they hold back certain packages, don't hold back other packages, especially the AUR, and then you
It's
get
sort of a mess.
You get like mismatched package versions all over the place. When you go to the unstable branch, it's basically syncing directly with the Arch repos, and everything just kind of lines up and works the way it's supposed to.
What's the point of
in my
using Manjaro?
experience,
Just use Arch.
in my experience, the unstable branch of Manjaro is more stable than the regular
vanilla
one.
Arch.
But to answer the question about why wouldn't you just use Arch? Well, I'm using stock Arch, but some hardware might benefit from using Manjaro anyway because of their custom kernels, the hardware detection tools, the EFI stuff that they include out of the box. There's a benefit to that, but outside of that, just use Arch.
Yeah, if you really want like a more stable, Arch experience, then maybe go Manjaro, but that's
Hang on.
discretion.
Could people not on Arch just grab the Manjaro tools?
No.
Not
The
easily.
libraries will be different, so it's when they build, so it's very hard.
Yeah,
Unless you build
it
those
would be
Well,
sort of
tools
like,
yourself.
yeah.
Well, the main thing is the Manjaro developers, they do a heck of a lot of tweaking in the kernel and with the driver stack that they have. So on this computer, if I run straight Arch with XFCE, I get screen tearing and lagginess all over the place. If I load up Manjaro, it's butter.
Could I not grab the Manjaro kernel?
Yeah, they do a lot of under the hood crap to make it a lot. Yeah,
you could, but why
yeah,
would you?
don't
Because it's
grab the kernel directly. It won't work. I've tried.
No,
At least
exactly not. It's.
But why run all the Manjaro tweaks on Arch if you need the Manjaro tweaks? Because on Manjaro, they're official packages and they're maintained.
Yeah.
You're not going to get that if you kind of port them over to Arch.
You're not going to get the whole Manjaro experience unless you run Manjaro itself.
Now, I personally don't like Manjaro anymore. It's a mess, but I can recognize that there are benefits to the heavy tweaking that they do to the kernels and the driver stack and all this stuff. So if you need that stuff, then Manjaro may be the answer that you're looking for. And if you're more in line with Arch, run the unstable branch, and you're pretty much running Arch with Manjaro tweaks.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Now to Schykle's point, Antergos was, oh boy, it's going down a whole other rabbit hole.
I miss it. Man, what a blast from the past.
This is a spiritual successor, sort of.
Yeah. And Heather actually brings up that she's loving my Storm OS. Well, that's sort of, in my eye, replaced Antergos as Endeavor has and a lot of other Arch derivatives have. But
that's a distro I haven't heard in a while. I miss that distro. It's a good one.
What, Antergos?
Yeah.
Oh, well, Matt,
Antergos.
when we started mine with Pac-Man some years ago.
That's right. You have to roll your R's with Antergos. It's not
Antergos. Yeah.
But you got to roll your R, otherwise you're not saying it correctly.
I struggle doing that, man.
I believe
either way.
I believe Beyond OS uses the original Antergos installer, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that I think that's a pretty close.
The Cinchi thing.
So it's the Reborn OS. They tried fixing it. It didn't work, so they switched to Calamaris too.
Yeah, the Calamaris. Yeah, they switched to that.
Basically Antergos is like like some of the stuff for Antergos came to Portagos OS, and that came to Endeavor because it's the same developers. And the installer went away because Calamaris was way more easy and there's more collaboration because there's a lot of distros, like not only Arch but Debian. I don't think Ubuntu, but there are other stuff like Fedora which use Calamaris. It's a lot more collaboration, so we don't need to do effort, like putting a lot of effort into a thing where only we use it. It's like, okay, we can develop a module and then everyone else can use it, like cross-platform. So that's why, I think Calamaris is so successful.
Right. But so anyway, that's just sort of something I wanted to bring into correlation with what we're talking about.
Cool. So something else that might be related tangentially is the AMD reveals an AMD GPU Composition Stack, a fork of Wayland's Weston compositor for advancing the Linux desktop. So I don't know if anyone's read about this at all, but I think this is pretty exciting news here. So essentially, has anybody heard this? It's from Gaming on Linux. So many desktops are running Wayland quite nicely, and it's been getting pushed and everything. But AMD has revealed what they call the AMD GPU Composition Stack, or ACS. It's a fork of Wayland's Weston compositor with some additional advanced features. which sounds pretty exciting to look at AMD developers. I want to say Shawshank Redemption, but it's not. It's Shashank Sharma, noted on the GitLab wiki page with this being the primary goals. To act as a staging area for Weston Wayland features to be open sourced to mainline, to act as a reference compositor for AMD's advanced graphic and display feature development, to provide middleware compositor with extracts which extracts the best out of the AMD display and graphics hardware. And it doesn't have to be, and it's not really doesn't have to be AMD hardware necessarily. It hosts some of the AMD hardware specific mode, which can't be merged in the Weston mainline due to its bias toward AMD hardware. To be utilized in full stack open source delivery vehicle for AMD's commercial solutions and products. Think Steam Deck. And to be the space for AMD specific in-house software tools, so performance tweakers, multimedia players, 3D games, profiling tools, etc., which can be saved in the future. So as noted on the wiki page, some initial features added include VRR/FreeSync, MPO using underlays, color management, and wide gambit support, ACS media player app, full screen HDR video playback, multi-seat config support. There's also a basic video player to included to demonstrate some of these advanced features in a video playback context. So I thought that was pretty cool. It was announced on their mailing list. So I think that's pretty exciting. I wonder when we're going to see some of the fruits of that, but I mean, if it's already being done, I don't know what I don't know if other projects with other Wayland compositors pull that stuff in, some of that stuff into the other Wayland compositors. I don't know how that works. Maybe you can ask one of your, Adam, maybe you can probably ask one of your language models for that. So anyway, sounds like good news for Linux gaming anyway, or Linux graphics tools for sure. So I thought that was really exciting to have. But anyway, any other thoughts on that? Anybody here use AMD GPUs? I have an AMD APU on this thing. Works pretty well. So far, I've had 73 drop frames entire show.
I've got an overclocked 570 in this machine, so runs really well.
Put the
but anything to push the goalpost forward, I guess. And thanks to Valve and their work, I mean, they're really moving the whole Linux ecosystem forward with the work they're doing with gaming. So I think it's welcome.
Yeah, I think it's good stuff. Guess we'll see what happens with from that. Obviously, it's a lot of new tooling and such. Probably makes it easier to develop as well. So good times. All right, and some other exciting news. I think this will probably only apply to, although Dale left. So between Dale and I, the OpenSUSE board election, if you are a member of the OpenSUSE project, you can, voting is open now. It closes in February. And no, I'm not on that list. So voting open on the 19th of January. It closes on February 2nd, and then the results will be announced on February 3rd. So if you are on the edge of your seat for all things OpenSUSE, there you go. Board elections are happening. So there are 3 open seats and 4 candidates. So
haven't they been delayed like twice already?
Once that I know of. So it was delayed. They delayed the because they didn't get enough people to put their name in the hat to be on the board. They delayed the election.
Right.
So it was a cascade. It was a cascade effect. So anyway, yeah, these things happen.
Oh shit!
All right, I'd like to get through 2 more stories that I think are kind of very interesting. I think. So if Intel has proposed, they propose an easily repairable and sustainable modular PC design for laptops and mini PCs. Now we already have that for full-size desktops. We have for like the last 50 years, almost 40 years. But now they're looking at doing that for smaller devices. This kind of makes me think of Raspberry Pis and their compute modules. You know how they have like, you can have different compute modules in some sort of a board. Kind of reminds me of that, I think, some of that concept. But essentially, looking at making PCs more modular and easy to repair and move to reduce e-waste. So they're proposing a separate
framework laptop.
Nope, this is not framework. This is Intel's proposal. So obviously, probably they may have taken some cues from framework, perhaps. But they're proposing a separate all-in-one motherboard design used in laptops. It's like break it up into 3 pieces, and also suggesting that many PCs, which are traditionally highly integrated and often difficult or impossible to repair, to be or upgrade, to separate in different modules as well. So it'll make this far easier to service and would also hopefully reduce the massive amount of e-waste generated each year. So aside from repairability and upgradability, Intel also claims that its scalable design for laptops will help reduce the engineering efforts made by their partners. Essentially, the 3 modules are the motherboard, the 2 I/O modules, and 2 I/O modules. The 2 I/O modules, which are connected to the main board via flexible printed circuit, and can be reused across various laptop sizes from 14-inch to 16-inch models and designs, from fanless 10-watt thin and light systems to mainstream 20-watt laptops with a single fan design, and 30-watt premium laptops that feature dual fan cooling. So these I/O modules can be used across generations, meaning OEMs do not have to completely redesign laptops whenever a new processor or GPU is released. It also leaves the potential for manufacturers to be able to upgrade laptops, including their processor, memory storage, wireless modules, which you could do like 10 years ago. So, okay. Apply to both commercial and consumer designs. So desktop PCs is already inherently modular, with users able to upgrade their CPU, GPU, memory storage, and nearly every other module on the computer at home. However, this is not the case for mini PCs. They want to change that. So, a CPU module.
So they want to
GPU
go back
module,
to the way it was in the past.
Essentially, yeah. It's a movement back. Yep.
Well, I have a laptop that's at least 15 years old. That laptop has a removable Intel CPU, removable RAM, removable Wi-Fi cards, removable WLAN cards, removable 5G network, or back then it wasn't 5G, of course, cell cards. It's all removable. So this isn't really a new concept. I think
it's like a laptop on steroids, isn't it?
I think they learned. I mean, they kind of had something like that in the past, and then they moved away from it. And now I think they're learning that maybe it's not working so well anymore. So I think this
is only a concept. This is not. There's no actual.
It's not like
it's not a thing yet, and I don't know when it will be a thing. So it's a concept they're floating. I mean, this is a great way to keep Apple away from Intel, because they would absolutely hate to have a repairable machine.
If they went back to Intel today, they would be like, no.
Well, I would say that the
right now,
repairability is something they don't like.
Well, right now, when it comes to chipset abilities, AMD is absolutely eating Intel's lunch right now.
Well, yeah, probably. But they all do it on
But
things.
they leapfrog each other every couple of cycles, so whatever.
It does seem that way. I think Thunderbolt's still something that AMD systems don't quite have. They have Thunderbolt. They have USB 4, which isn't quite the Thunderbolt standard.
Yeah.
Oh, and the N.2 NVMe stuff, that was originally an Intel technology as well. So
yeah.
Then we need to come back to big. I think what would make laptops cool again is if you could have an antenna like the old cordless phones, like from the 80s, and you have to extend the antenna for Wi-Fi.
Actually, my laptop can fit a SIM card.
Or go back to those big Wi-Fi cards.
Laptop is fun.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I can do that with my 15-year-old laptop in the cabinet. It'll take 2 of them.
All right, and I've one more. I'll do one more exciting story here before we kind of move on to the last bits here. So, kind of a little bit more in the Wayland and graphics side of things, but LXQt Wayland support is now here. So anyone here who uses LXQt or Qt, they now have they have Wayland support. So LXQt 2.1 has Wayland compatibility, at least in Tumbleweed. The support is to be considered experimental at this point, and for most users, it's likely not ready for their daily driving. But unlike other desktop environments, it does not provide its own LXQt does not provide its own window manager. Under X11 and OpenSUSE's LXQt team defaults to using OpenBox as a window manager. This decision carries over from upstream to the new Wayland support. The initial release of LXQt Wayland session supports the following Wayland compositors: so Hyperland, KWin, LabWC, Neary, River, Sway, and Wayfire.
Yeah.
So at present, not all of LXQt's built-in configuration tools work with all compositors, nor do all compositors support all features of LXQt components. Most notably, there's a bunch of but LXQt global keys, LXQt panels, and with the exception with KWin and LabWC, configuration is done by editing the text configuration files and individual compositors. So KWin be configured through the GUI. Tools provide the relevant parts of the KDE system settings are installed. LabWC offers LabWC tweaks, which allows certain configurations through the GUI, but it is not comprehensive. So if you are, I don't know what the Ubuntu, I don't know what their status is, but it's upstream and it's going to be available in Tumbleweed very soon. So anyway, I thought that was pretty exciting. I like a lot of Wayland news this week. So
I'll be happy when somebody ports Compiz over to Wayland.
Well, Matt, there is actually Compiz in the AUR, but I also pray for that day myself, man.
I think we need one of those AI gurus to get that fixed.
Well, thank you very much. What do you mean gurus? Could probably use it. Probably use a language model now, right? That'll fix everything.
Oh, I wish.
So, all right. So next week is an application appetizer week. So if you actually, does anybody have any applications that have been like burning a hole in their CD-ROM that they'd like to share? Anything exciting to check out? A game or something, perhaps?
Have you guys talked about GhostTTY?
I've heard of it.
It's the new popular terminal. Everyone's like trying to use it, or at least try it. Maybe it's an interesting topic. I don't know. It's very popular right now. It's a new terminal.
Ghost. It almost looks like Ghosty.
It's GhostTTY.
I heard people call it Ghosty, but I don't know which one is the official.
It's a Ghosty, basically
pronunciation.
same thing. It's GhostTTY, Ghosty. Everyone is trying to use that. New thing. New.
So what is
hype.
I've heard it like before, like they have like a GPU acceleration in the terminal, which I don't understand that one. But what's the I guess what's the
I haven't tried it yet, but if we decide to try it, I can try it. But lots of people are talking about it, at least in forums, which I've seen.
GhostTTY is a terminal emulator that differentiates itself by being fast, feature-rich, and native. While there are many excellent terminal emulators available, they all force you to choose between speed, features, or native UIs. GhostTTY provides all three.
But does it have natural language?
I think everything except Australian.
So version 1.0.1 was released before the start of the new year, December 31st. And that's the only release.
Sorry, that doesn't come back.
I don't think that's the only release. Like people have been using this for like 2-3 months now. They've been trying.
Well, they have it for Arch, Gentoo, NixOS, Nix Flake. Is that a serial? OpenSUSE, Solus, Void Linux, and there's a Debian version, Fedora, Silverblue, Ubuntu, and also a universal app image. So, does anybody have any other? If no one has any other suggestions, I'm good with this. GhostTTY. I'm gonna call it GhostTTY because it sounds a lot cuter that way.
Like I'm not too serious about it because I already have like terminals which I already use frequently, but I think it's a new. Lots of people are interested in this. I don't know why, but apparently it's a new thing.
It's the new thing. You gotta have
That's the
something that
only
excites you.
version the 1.1. That's the only version that's listed in the website. I don't know about the actual GitHub, but that's what the website.
No. It's been you like people have been talking about it. At least I went through my forums. At least people have been talking about it at least 2-3 months. Like they're still talking about it. So they're doing something right.
Well, any other thoughts or suggestions?
Like we can do other terminals also, like GhostTTY, compare with your favorite terminal. Like people who use console, Kitty, or whatever. You can see, like if you're sticking with your old terminal or moving over to GhostTTY, or like we can just do a compare, talk about pros, cons, about what terminal you use, why, and would you prefer GhostTTY or whatever, like LXQt or Weston or whatever.
All right. Well, let's just give it a try. I'm not hearing anything else. So GhostTTY it is. So next week we will talk about our adventures with GhostTTY.
Ooh.
Because we're Linux nerds, and Linux nerds like the terminal. Most of us, some of us, except for Anna. Anna doesn't like the terminal. Maybe she should try the terminal. Anna Rita, you should try GhostTTY.
I only use it on a needed basis.
I like the terminal. A lot of my work's done. That gets done there.
I'm sort of the opposite.
So I kind of wonder when my job will be replaced by a language model.
I'm not very much a terminal junkie. Sorry.
It's all right. You don't have to be.
If you're wondering, then you're already doomed.
Actually, what I really want is that one of these language models to be able to clean the chicken coop for me. If I can get that done, I won't be sad by that at all.
Well, actually, Nate, no, I'm just kidding.
Well,
if you have a solution,
if you
please share.
get rid of the chickens, if you get rid of the chickens, you wouldn't have to clean anything.
That's true, but I like my chickens. They're my happy. I like going out there and feeding them, and they all kind of make their little chickeny sounds when they come up to me. It's fun.
So they recognize you and everything?
Oh yeah. They come like when I come home, I have one chicken that'll jump over the fence and come greet me at the back door. Yeah, they're pretty entertaining. Make me laugh. All right, well, if you have any suggestions for distributions, applications, or poll ideas, send them to suggestions@linuxsaloon.com, or you can tag Errors for myself or somebody, suggestion, hashtag suggestion, or something like that in the, I guess you're not supposed to say hashtag anymore. That's what old millennials say. So, but I'm not an old millennial. Anyway, yeah, you can just tag it in the Telegram or Discord or something of that nature.
Yeah.
All right. So we are going to go to our free pour. We have a little bit of time left. So what do you got there, Ben?
Oh boy. It's been an all day plus last night project.
Which is?
Well,
don't bury the lead.
Well, look, I posted a picture of it to you and in the Telegram, but I'm gonna try and sugarcoat this as much as I can because I know we're low on time. But put it simply, to add to the Manjaro discussion we had just a few minutes ago, I have a finally almost ready second edition of StormOS to present to everybody, SormJaro. And it's basically Matt sent me a rebuilt version of his Manjaro from a picture of it from because he and I collaborated on it a couple of years ago, and we put together his Manjaro BioMem 2.0. I don't know if we ever did a 3.0, but long story short, it had a very big following since the early Manjaro era, and I decided, since he contributed so much to Hackman back in the day, and maybe somewhat to StormOS with some of his web browser skills, etc. So I decided, why not do a Manjaro for StormOS? So I said, what the heck? I grabbed his wallpaper with minus his branding, and some nice black and green theme, blue, and
he's
some white versions,
basically
whatever.
He's
ahead, Matt.
basically resurrecting my old Manjaro project.
Manjaro spin.
Yeah,
yes, under a different name.
from back in the day. He's pretty much
got it right.
Nearly cloned it. It's basically my old Manjaro by MM builds, just done by Ben. That's basically what
That's
it
what
is.
it is. And if you want to know more about it, go back and look at some of the old videos. And this is that just in a modern light, so to speak. So yeah. And
yeah, I'm not.
This is another famous project in the works. So.
Yeah, it was successful when I was still doing it, but I'm not into building distros anymore. I just don't have the time for it.
But
so
yeah, I still enjoy it, and
so
I figured, bring it back and see if I can revive some of that same light that this might bring to the table.
Now, just to be not to be contrarian or anything like that, but it seems like you got like a StormOS thing here and here and here. Do you think maybe you should like focus your efforts
I'm gonna
on one
put this
thing?
into some perspective for you, Nate. The LFS version I was planning and all these other minor additions are not going to be a thing. This is only going to be, this is going to be like the last subsection that is going to be added, and the other ones I previously mentioned are going to be off the table.
Gotcha.
I think I could summarize it. Ben was very fond of my Manjaro by MM build, and I kind of
actually, like I said, contributed to it some years ago.
and I kind of pulled it out of the old cabinet and dusted it off the other day because I've been trying to do some GTK stuff, and Ben saw it and became nostalgic and kind of made it his little pet project to bring it back to life. So that's basically what it is.
Yeah.
So
and
that's basically what it is. It's not taking away from StormOS. It's
no. This is not taking away from the Arch version at all. This is just a little sub project that I did to, bring Matt's project to light.
Just for fun. It's just for fun.
It's just a for fun thing. I'm not sure if this is gonna last or not. I'm not trying to shy away from my main build. This is just a little fun sub project. That's all this is.
Well, as long as you're learning something. I was just curious. Don't want you to be stretched too thin or
you're fine.
or lose
But
focus
yeah,
on
again,
the
this is not
on the main
this
course.
is not this is not saying the StormOS version is going anywhere. This is just again a little subheader. That's it.
Gotcha.
Well, I mean, Linux Mint has the Debian edition. I mean, StormOS could have the
this
Manjaro
is similar
edition.
to that. This is similar to the Debian subheading for Linux Mint, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, something we're just adding on.
But Linux Mint is a much bigger project. There are more people to try different stuff.
But
Just sort of again, this is sort of similar to how they do it. Yeah.
Well, thanks to the Manjaro build tools, it's super easy to crank out an ISO with Manjaro. So it's not that big of a deal.
Again, it's what took me like a night and a half just to sort of get it together. Because again, like he said, Manjaro, you can have it done like that. Because remember, man, we used to crank out ISOs a lot with Manjaro back in the day. So.
But I think one night we did 8 in one night.
I remember that, man. Yeah, it was a lot. I mean, we had this bug and that bug and this bug and that bug, and it was like, my God, we just I don't know how many we had to do to get it right back then.
But that's why I don't.
Nate,
but that's why I don't do distros anymore. But that's why I don't build distros anymore, because I don't have the time.
Process.
I don't have the time to stay up for a day and a half troubleshooting some side project.
I know. You've got IRL stuff that takes priority.
Well, but web development is kind of
where you're at.
I've kind of put my focus into that.
Right.
So.
Well, this will be an addition to set of that. Oh, and I completely forgot to mention. Speaking of our website, I might need you to redirect the free ISO on there if you can to the paid one, because that I did put the paid version on SourceForge, and I might need you to switch that link around if you don't mind, please.
Well, I can just do a duplicate download page like I had before.
Yeah, we'll do that after the show. That's fine. Yeah. Anyway, Nate, that's all we've got to say for this week. And if we have anything next week, you'll be the first to know.
Sweet. All right.
All right.
Well, thank you very much. That means it is time for last call. So,
one last thing.
like Columbo,
Hopefully,
I
at
tell
some
ya.
point, we can get StormJaro on the show at some point.
All right. So it is a time for last call.
Shoot.
Let's make sure. I don't know, Eric. I don't know if you're still at your computer. Or not. I don't know if you had anything.
I'm
you wanted
here.
to-
Yeah, I just didn't
Okay.
have the camera on. No, I don't have anything for this go around. So just everybody have a good couple weeks.
Appreciate it.
I'm sorry, good week.
Thank you.
Well, we can have a good couple weeks too. The
Have both.
what's that?
I said have both. A good week and a
Both.
good couple weeks.
A preemptive
Yeah.
good couple weeks. So I didn't see him here tonight, but Steve's very own. He's one of my favorite streamers to watch, just because he does fun things with OBS. So check him out, Steve's very own on the YouTubes. He's also on Twitch. I think he complained about something early on in the show about doesn't have as good of something. I don't remember what it was. Yeah, check him out. Steve's very own on Twitch and on YouTube. All right. Also, I'm going to podcast Linux Out Loud. I think we're going to record sometime soon. I don't know. People are busy. I have a website called cubiclate.com. I write things sometimes. I haven't written anything this year yet, so been too busy. I don't know if anybody has anything. Jinda or no?
All good.
Eris. Good to have the Srad Joker back.
Yeah.
If it's really you or not an AI. Saloon is part of the Tux Digital Network, so check out more great shows at tuxdigital.com. And thank you all for your support, however you do it, being a part of the conversation, both the Zoom meeting and the YouTube stream, as well as for everyone for watching the show after the fact. I want to thank everyone involved in making the Linux and open source tools possible for us to not only have this conversation, but also to have fun and enjoy our technology. Linux truly puts personal back in a personal computer. Thank you for stopping by. Be sure to tip your developers, and please remember to Linux responsibly. Until next time, see yous.
Good night, everybody.
Good.